Well, to discuss this further, we're now joined by Amira Elghawaby, and she's with the National Council of Canadian Muslims, and we've reached her in Ottawa. So, Amira, thank you for making the time for us today. It's been such a controversial story, and we've got this outcome yesterday from the courts. I'm wondering what your reaction is to the burkini ban being overturned.
Yes, good morning, Natasha. Well, I think I share the sentiments of many people around the world and here in Canada who are watching a little bit with outrage and shock that women were being, forced to undress on beaches, that their personal space was being invaded in this way. So I think the court's decision to overturn the policies implemented by 30 different mayors across the French Riviera, I think that, that's what we would have expected in a democracy. And the court ruled, in fact, that this policy was curtailing on women's freedoms. And I think that we would agree with that.
There are still some mayors in France who are saying that, in fact, they won't accept this decision. They'll continue to have the ban. It continues to be a divisive issue, Amira. And I think for many, even those who don't want the ban in place, who say a woman can wear whatever she wants, they're really concerned about this bigger issue of modesty when it comes to Islam and for Muslim women. Why does the onus of responsibility for modesty always fall on women? Why don't men have to cover up the same way?
Well, I think that's an interesting discussion, but I think it's quite irrelevant to talking about personal rights and freedoms. So what makes a democracy so incredible and special is that it permits people to practice their religion or lack thereof, live their lifestyles as they wish, free and without any coercion from the state. I think that's what we all cherish. And I think that if we're going to live in democracies where people are treated equally, then that will have to apply to everyone, both men and women of all backgrounds. That is at the heart of what this discussion is. People's choices. I was just reading an article on CBC about a Jewish woman who designed similar bathing suits in Israel and mentioning, that she has no issue with selling these bathing suits and women will wear them on the beach and nobody questions that. So I think that we are talking about personal freedom. You want to wear a bikini, go ahead. You want to wear a burkini, go ahead. It's your right. And I think women around the world are a little bit tired of being told what they can and cannot wear. And I think here in Canada, we've had similar debates about this. And I think we've all come to understand that this is fundamental rights and freedoms that we should be cherishing and upholding.
Okay. There are, of course, also Muslim women who supported the burkini ban, who are opposed to the burkini. I'd like to quote someone for you that we've been following. Her name is Hala Arafa. Now, she was a journalist with The Voice of America. She is a Muslim writer and commentator. She's written a piece, and part of it reads, "To say the burkini ban stifles cultural diversity is to focus on the superficial garment, not the rape ideology it promotes." She then goes on to say, "That also ignores the deterioration in every aspect of social and political life in the Muslim world since the introduction of this extremist ideology. This is not a choice of dress. This is a choice of a very specific ideology that has proven harmful to society." And Hala has received considerable support from many Muslim women who feel that they don't get the support they need when they don't want to cover up. They feel shamed. How do you respond to a comment like that?
Well, I support Hala's freedom of expression to sharing her views, but where I think we have to sort of pause is she has the right to have those feelings. She has the right to express them, but a Muslim woman also has the right to make her own decision. Does she want to dress in this way or she doesn't? Again, we're talking about fundamental freedoms. And I think it's really important that we're not imposing our own ideas of what, for example, my headscarf means to you. It's my choice to wear. I woke up this morning, nobody said, do this or do that. It was my choice. And I think, Arundhati Roy, a famous Indian activist, actually said, to coerce a woman into a burqa is just as problematic as coercing her out of one. It's not about the burqa per se, it's about the coercion. So the state has no business in the wardrobes of its citizens. This is what a free country is about. And I think here in Canada, we just see the decision with the RCMP to allow women to wear hijab. I think that indicates the kind of society we're trying to build here, which is one of inclusion, of diversity, and helping make our society very positive for everyone.
Amir, I'm glad you brought up this issue about a woman's choice and supporting a woman's choice. So this story out of France got so much attention this week. Everyone around the world was talking about it. It was a headline everywhere. But for you as a Muslim and also as someone who's a commentator on this, Why don't you think there's the equivalent amount of attention to Sharia police in Iran or Pakistan or Indonesia forcing women to cover up? The fact that Saudi women do not have freedom of mobility and freedom of choice without their husbands or their sons or their fathers' consent. Those Muslim women don't have choices, but yet we don't see those stories, and we don't see advocacy groups shouting and holding protests outside embassies for those things. Why?
Well, I mean, again, we're going to be talking here within the story that you've invited me to speak about. But of course, I think, as I mentioned, any kind of coercion is to be condemned. So even within Islamic understanding is that nobody should be forced into doing anything at all, that a woman should not be forced to wear the hijab. She should be free to make that decision, just as she should be free to wear it. So I think that, again, going back to our fundamental beliefs here and the freedom to practice as one wishes, absolutely, we should be, of course, against any kind of coercion, any kind of policing of women's bodies. I think this is very problematic. Now, you know, in 2016, we shouldn't be hearing about this happening anywhere in the world. And I think collectively, as both women and men, we should be speaking up very clearly that this sort of state control is really unwelcome and really contrary to human rights globally.
Okay, so whether it's in France or Canada, Saudi Arabia or Iran, women should have their own choices, right?
Women should make their own choices, whether we're talking about the French Riviera or we're talking about women wanting to join the RCMP if they would like to wear the hijab. I think it's important that we focus again on what are our fundamental rights and freedoms that we all cherish.
Okay. Amira, thank you so much for your perspective today.
Thanks so much, Natasha.
Amira Elghawaby is with the National Council of Canadian Muslims. She joined us from Ottawa.